We're going to go live in a couple minutes here with Kaleem Clarkson. We're going to be talking about how you ditch the office. And if you live in Atlanta, you know what I mean. Why drive to the office every day? It's a complete waste of time. But how to use a remote workforce to scale the living shit out of your business. Kaleem is an expert. He is a top voice for LinkedIn. And we're going to be joined here in a second with him. But stay tuned. We'll see you in about 90 seconds. Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Hey, we're live here. Never Been Promoted. Welcome back. Thomas Helfrich, your host. We are on a mission to help you get better at entrepreneurship by cutting the tie to all that shit that's holding you back. That's right. It's a gorgeous metaphor. It's a good color tie too. And my wife wasn't super happy the first time I cut it, but it doesn't matter because it's done now and I've cut a tie to a tie. Anyway, I know you're always wondering, and I like to make a little joke. Does water really taste better out of a Stanley? Fuck yeah, it does. I wish Stanley sponsored me. That's why we do this, because I actually think it does taste better. Anyway, pretty cringe. Love it. But hey, before we get going here, I want you to guys know that if this is your first time here, I really do want to help you get better at entrepreneurship. Now, the way to do that, you can spend a whole bunch of money on classes, and you should probably find a mentor, or you can just kind of listen to a bunch of entrepreneurs, micro mentor a little bit with it, learn from each of their mistakes and their kind of successes, failures. And in the end, you can do it. Just go to youtube.com/@neverbeenpromoted. Give it a follow, and if you listen to the podcast, 5-star reviews are favored over any other. And if you don't think it's 5-star, hit me on LinkedIn and tell me why. Let's get to the stage, Mr. Kaleem Clarkson. Where'd he go? Here he is.
Let's get that bass music going again. Though.
Bring it in.
You feeling it? Come on.
It's good, right? I'd like to thank. I got Chris Carter. I'm sorry, Carter Fox. This guy made this music, and I was like, dude, that's some really good like funk. He's a bassist. And he's traveled all over.
More bass, Thomas. More bass.
Not more cowbell. We need more bass. Thanks for coming on, Kaleem. You're an Atlanta person like myself. How are you?
I'm okay, man. Appreciate you. Glad I didn't have to deal with that traffic today. 95 degrees hot.
I have not stepped outside of taking a daughter to the bus stop. It has been pretty much I live in a basement. I mean, it could have rained today. I don't know.
Bro, what happened to your tie?
Well, it got cut off, right? I cut the tie and all this stuff holding me back. People hold on to things, right? These ideas. We'll talk about this because this is actually very core to what we'll talk about with remote work and how to actually use it correctly to build a business. And I think any business could do it for the most part, but the thing that people hold on to stuff, right? They hold on to fears, beliefs that aren't really true, excuses, senses of entitlement, like the world owes you anything, and
nostalgia.
Exactly, all this stuff. You got to get rid of it because you got to be kind of free to move forward correctly. And one of the things people have always held on to, right, recently, right, in your world, is we need to have an office. We need to see people. Ooh. I think that's one of the biggest ties as you're an entrepreneur, you're building your company. If you don't need to have people in an office and you can find the right people to perform, this is what we're talking about. Like like an organizational scale win, not to have to drop tens of thousands, if not more, office space. So
I
let's
agree.
set it up. You talked about yourself. You're the founder of Blend Me Inc., right? You're co-founder. I don't want your founder get mad at you.
Yeah. Co-founder. My partner and I, we started Blend Me Inc. in 2013 as a side hustle.
Nice.
My partner, she has her master's degree in organizational development and human resources from UConn. I'm a former front-end developer, front-end engineer, and spent a lot of time doing operations, director of operations at a large university here in Georgia, Kennesaw State University. It's about 45,000 students. So I learned a ton about operations, was there for about a decade in the faculty development center. So really working with faculty on how to be better teachers. I helped a whole bunch of senior consultants who were faculty, award-winning faculty. They would actually go and consult with each of the new faculty on how to write a syllabus, for example, how to flip the classroom, for example. So I learned a ton about how to navigate a practice from that. So yeah, we started in 13. It was a side hustle at first, Thomas, and then I'm a full-time engineer at a company, enjoying life, fully remote, thinking like, yo, maybe Google is in my future in 5 years, or some unbelievable coding job, right? And number one, I found very quickly that people are geniuses. So shout out to all my former employees over at Oomph. Wonderful development team. If you need something done high level, go check them out. But March of 2020, man. March of 2020 happens. We start noticing a lot more of our website statistics rise up a little bit. And then all of a sudden people started reaching out, a little bit, but it wasn't a lot. So we're talking, this is still March, but we're noticing a significant uptick. And I was struggling at the time. We gotta speak truth here, right?
You got to bleed on the table. If you don't, no one believes it. It's hard.
I was bleeding. I was developing in Drupal, and from my perspective, I didn't feel like I was performing at the highest level. Like I was the worst coder on the team, and it's tough to be the worst. Like even if it's expected. Like the team was great. They were supportive. They understood I was coming from higher ed. Like they gave me all the resources I need to succeed. But in my own mind, being a former college athlete, I hated being the worst.
It's a horrible feeling when you're so used to being good or great. And then all of a sudden you're like, literally like, people are looking like you suck. You're like, wait, guys, I don't suck at anything. What?
And they were so good. Like they lifted me up. They were like, no, that's great. You're doing good. I mean, they were unbelievable, but I still couldn't shake it. And I remember just having these one-on-ones with my manager. Shout out, Rob. But I just remember like, yo, I don't like this feeling. He's like, no, don't worry. It takes time. It takes time. It takes time. You're going to be okay. It takes time. And I just couldn't accept the fact that I wasn't great at coding right away compared to all.
Now, how old are you, Kaleem?
This is 2000. This is 2020. So I'm 40. I would have been 44 at that time, 43.
All right. So we're the same age. So I discovered that right out of the .com quickly, that not only did I not have a passion to sit in front of a freaking computer all day and code, I was just completely outmatched by these people who just got it. And I was like, but I do better than them. I talk about stuff way better. So I went consulting. I immediately was like, man, this is going to be awesome. Make money. I'm like, oh God, no, I can't do any of what they're doing.
Yeah. It was an eye opener. But like everything, hindsight 2020, like I just needed to stick to it. Like there was a situation where I just like, keep sticking to it. You're going to be fine. But it wasn't until so I'm in this mode of just feeling sorry for myself. Although, again, I have to keep emphasizing this. The rest of the team was very supportive and was like, no, you're on track. Just continue doing what you're doing and you'll naturally get better and you'll be there. It just takes time. I'm very impatient. So I was kind of in the dumpsies. Well, sure enough, when you have siblings, they kind of come in and they pick you up when you're down. It was my brother. My brother calls me up And this is like March, I don't know, 20th, maybe early April. And mind you, we decided to go to Maine. So that's part I'm originally from Maine. During the pandemic, we decided to fly back to Maine because people in Atlanta were tripping. All right. People in Atlanta were shooting guns over water and toilet paper. We all forget about that shit. But people in Atlanta in 2020, I remember on the news, people shooting over water and paper towels and toilet.
We had multiple murder Krogers at that point. Like, so like you had one murder Kroger. We had lots of murder Krogers. And
we had lots of
everything else.
Sorry about
if you guys, well, let me catch some people up. This is a quote. There is a store. There's a thing called Kroger, and if you don't know, Kroger is a grocery store. It's a nice grocery store.
We love Kroger. And by the way, we're available Kroger for sponsorship. We're not slandering your name.
But no, I love Kroger. Listen, I like Aldi. It's cheap. I like Kroger next, and then we go to Publix third. And not that it's bad. It's an order of cost. All right. So, but there's a Kroger that's had so many murders in the parking lot. It's labeled Murder Kroger, and it's people know it. It's actually, if you Google it, you'll see it. And so you'll
find Murder Kroger. So I'm getting so we're in Maine, and I'm feeling in the dumpsies because I'm not, keeping up as quick as possibly, and we're coding Blue Cross Blue Shield at the moment. So we're coding bcbs.com, like, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we're coding that during the pandemic. So there's a lot of pressure. And my brother calls me out of the blue and he's like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? What am I going to do? What do you mean? He goes, about Blend. And I'm like, what? Nothing. I'm a developer. And he was like, you're no damn developer. I was like, what the fuck? I'm sorry. What are you saying?
You could drop that, man. It's fine.
And he was like, you're no damn developer. And I was like, all defensive. You don't know me. I've been coding here. I've been working. I've been a part of the Drupal community for 12 years. Blah, 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 blah. You don't know. And he was like, nah, man, that's not what I meant. Like, you taught yourself the code because, when you put your mind to teaching yourself something, you generally do it. He's like, but that's not your superpower. He's like, your superpower mean your name, Kaleem. It actually means speaker. And your superpower is leading, speaking, telling stories, thinking ahead. You've been talking about remote work since 2013. And a lot of people, there's a small community of us who were talking about the remote work earlier. I'm not the only one. But there was a small, and he was like, look, you've been thinking ahead. You've been thinking forward. You've been telling stories since I can remember. Your superpower is that. Your superpower is leading. And I was like, wow. Like, he hit me. And sometimes you need people to hit you with those truth bombs, and we got off the phone and it was a tough time, man. Like, the pandemic was a tough time and I was feeling the pressure like a lot of people. And yes, I'm a remote work expert. We're fully remote, but like a lot of people always say, Kaleem, you must have loved the pandemic. No, a lot of people died, man. Of course I didn't love the pandemic. But at the same time, as a remote work expert, I need to see people. If you can't tell, I have this energy. I need to be around people. So I couldn't do that. So even for me as a remote work expert and professional, I couldn't be around my people. So I was feeling kind of depressed, man. I'm not gonna really down. And, when my brother told me that, like, it made me feel good, but then it also made me feel even more depressed, man. And I'll never forget this. It's March, late March, early April. And up in New England, up in Maine, it snowed again. Actually snowed almost. We stayed until June, but it actually snowed on other days. But it snowed again.
Not surprising up there, by the way.
And it's like 3 a.m. I just couldn't sleep. And I woke up and I go outside and I pour bourbon. I know I probably shouldn't have been drinking at that time, but I was like, what am I going to do? I'm wide awake. And it's cold out and it's snowing. And all of a sudden, Thomas, man, like, I just started bawling, crying. My chest started feeling tight. Like I've never had I don't know if it was an anxiety attack. I don't know what it was, man. I don't know if it was my brother's words mixed in with like the frustration of me trying to keep up with like these bomb ass coders. Shout out Phil. Like all these unbelievable professionals. Yeah. And it just hit me and I couldn't breathe. And all of a sudden I started sobbing. And it was an ugly cry, Thomas. Like, I don't know if you've seen that Dane Cook stand up years and years ago, but when he's talking about, when the snot starts coming out and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I hadn't had one of those in probably 10 years. And I just did it, and it all came out. And I went inside and I was like, well, where did that come from? Because I was happy. I was there with my in-laws. I love my in-laws, by the way, having a great time. We're fully remote. We're hanging out. We're seeing our kids. We're seeing the family, socially distanced, of course. But like, I'm having a really good time. So I'm asking myself, why did you just have a breakdown? So I opened my journal, and I don't know what made me do it, but I wrote the first question down of what drains me. What drains me was the first question. Then the second question was, what is it that you don't like? What's the thing that you hate the most? And then another question was just all about negative things that weren't positive. And I remember the first thing I wrote down of, what frustrates you the most, I think. And I said, I remember not being able to do what it is that I want to do because I don't have the resources. That was like number one, right? And then I started asking myself, what is it that you love to do? Like the next set of questions. And the first one was like, I love talking about remote work and work-life integration, because we talk about work-life integration versus work-life balance, right? Like together you integrate versus.
I think it's a better word, by the way, because there is no balance. When you work from home, you work more.
Definitely. So it was that moment, Thomas, man. Like there was that moment where I was writing those things, and there were some other things in there: freedom, autonomy to travel, and autonomy to visit my family while working. So there were some other things in there.
Yeah.
And the next day I basically, called my partner and I was like, what do you think? Should I dive in full time with Blend? Mind you, I have an engineering job. Well, interestingly enough, I have a difficult conversation with my supervisor, and he's like, hey, Kaleem, like, I know you're frustrated, but like, let's get it going. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get it going. And basically I didn't do it well enough, and I got fired on my day off.
Is it fired or asked to leave? There's a difference.
No, it was unbelievable. Basically, they were like, Kaleem, like, all you got to do, if you're like, the issue was like, I would take on too much work. I would say I can take 15 tickets, but I would only be able to complete 8. You know what I mean? But like when I wanted to get the work, like when it was time to assign the work, I was like, no, I can do that in less time. Like I can do it. Come on, let's go. And it would take longer. So he was like, hey, look, just only take on the things that you know that you can do, and then subtract some. So I was like, okay. And in my mind, my brother, everything, I had the journal, I had that moment. And he's like, okay, so how many tickets do you want to work on? And I was like, 15. And he was like, don't do that. He's like, are you sure? I was like, nah. He's like, now look, if you take on 15 and you can't complete the 15 tickets, we're going to have a more difficult conversation. And I was like, no, sir, I can do it. Knowing damn well I couldn't do it. I mean, bro, you hadn't done 15 tickets yet. I hadn't hit 15.
You've done 15 tickets this year.
Yeah, right.
It's like you sitting underneath the bench press going, I'm going to do 400. Like
exactly. Like, what, because like there was a part of me, like I didn't want to give up on them because they took a chance on me, right? Like, right. I was all mixed up in my.
So wait. So when you had the kind of like emotional, like I don't want to call it a breakdown because it's just a reconnection to yourself. You're like,
I guess, yeah.
Maybe, this was prior to the conversation of being like,
correct.
Oh, so you knew it was coming. So like, you're not, like, you got instinct here. I've had that where you're like, something's off. And like 2 weeks later.
No. What I'm saying, like my body didn't feel right. And then, like a week or 2 later, right, the conversation came up, like with my boss. And I was like, okay, should I just do what he says and pick the 5 tickets and do a great job and continue to kind of not fake your way through it, but just like not be emotionally connected as much as you were about this thing? Because now the thought of my brother saying, bro, that's not your superpower, it's hitting me because he's right. He knew exactly how I was
Well,
feeling.
he is, and you're trying to make a living, support a family, do other things with it,
Exactly.
and I know exactly how you feel, and I think I always try to find these moments for entrepreneurs out there that are maybe where you are, where you were. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Hmm.
I have had the same thing, and in the job that I was in was, a $500,000 a year plus type of job. Even
Wow.
I felt like I wasn't enough for it. Like I didn't feel like I was
Correct.
really making way,
Because the money
and not
doesn't fill it.
it doesn't, but also like you get in an environment and you're doing the things you're doing the way you know how to do them, and you just realize that like this is like not even that like even if I got this, it was and I think I was doing okay, but like you just kind of feel it coming. And when you feel it coming, you should also know that no matter what kind of money you make or where you are, that's a good thing.
It
It
is a good
sucks to be
thing.
laid off. It sucks not to have any exit plan. But the truth
Hmm.
is, you're doing yourself. Half of America hates their job. It's like that's a Gallup poll
Yeah, it
from like
might even
20.
be higher than that. It might even be. You're right.
It's in
Yeah.
it, and that so that means a third of your adult life is you're angry effectively. And the truth
Right.
is, half of your awake time as an adult, you're angry. And I assure you that shit spills over to the
While you're
times when you're not
sleeping.
working.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, why would you stay in something that makes you unhappy? It doesn't mean that you just quit today, but you got forced into it. The thing I want people to take away is when you recognize that it's not a fit, it's not a superpower, you need to go align a superpower and do something about it. And this is where your excuses either come in and you don't achieve, or you say, listen, I'm going to go take classes. I'm going to start the side hustle. I'm going to go do it. Sometimes you're thrown into it like you, but the point is that is the calling in the moment that you identify that you're about to go waste your adult life.
Mm.
Right
Thomas,
there.
you hit it right on the head because I was happy with the job that I was doing. The people, again, I can't say this enough. The agency that I was hired with, unbelievable agency. They were lenient. They were also like, bro, you're doing fine. And then with all entrepreneurs, you're right. It's the pressure of supporting your family. So that pressure was there. And I think this is really important because in entrepreneurship, you're going to hear all of these stories of, you know what, just go all in and do it. You got to drop everything and do it. And honestly, I don't subscribe to that model. Like I said, we started Blend in 2013 as a side hustle. So I'm in year 7 of a side hustle. LinkedIn is already up. I got thousands of followers. We're talking about it already. We're writing articles. We consulted with companies at this point. So that side hustle allowed me to be prepared.
That's right. Yeah.
For when that next moment of questioning what I'm doing to make that decision. So that's number one. And number two, if you don't have a supportive partner, luckily my significant other, she was very supportive and we could survive off just one salary if needed be.
I want to point
Like,
something out here.
could have been oodles and noodles. Could have been oodles and noodles surviving.
So we
But
got a slight delay, so I stepped on you there. I want to emphasize that point because as much as I kind of, as my wife says, trash talk corporate, she's like, I want to point out that my corporate job for 2 years while you built your company paid for it and kept us afloat while we were sinking. And I'm like, I am totally clear on that. I get it. And that's part of it. But at some point, if you have that partner, and how you did it, at least you maybe had a conversation. I just said, hey, honey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. And didn't look really for a new job. And I didn't need that. Listen, we went to
but
therapy.
You got to have a support system.
We worked through it. We worked through it.
Yeah. I think the main point is the two things you got to have is number one, you got to have some sort of traction. I believe you need to have some sort of traction. And I think most lean startup books that you're going to read these days or entrepreneurship books are going to probably agree that you got to have some sort of validation before you jump into the pool, right? But then not only do you need to have some sort of validation, I do believe you got to have a support system for your family, because look, jumping in and not having any support and just praying that it's going to work out, it could really ruin your life. I mean, if you're not,
it will. Yeah. Hope is not a good strategy there. All right, so let's dive in. So one of the questions that came up from the chat here, I can't find it, is from Dan Cole. I know Dan works. I met Dan actually a couple weeks ago. He's asking kind of like the aspect of workers you could probably like, I don't quite understand the question. I'm hoping you do, because I think he
Yeah.
does some remote work as well. How would you answer the question he had produced? What aspect of workers do you work with or provide, and how does that system work?
Yeah. So at Blend, we are a remote work consultancy. We are an HR consultancy for remote and hybrid organizations. Prior to the pandemic, we only did HR consulting for fully remote companies.
Ah,
So prior to the pandemic, we would only work with fully remote companies from an HR perspective. Because again, my partner, master's degree in organizational development, human resources, and myself in operations. So a lot of times we use the phrase people operations instead of HR. Most of the times we do, because we feel like it's more modern. So what do we do? So we work with companies, startups, small businesses, basically any company with less than 1,000 employees. We work with them on a project basis. So if you need a new handbook, if you need everything around the employee experience. So that excludes like traditional HR. A lot of people think about recruiting, they think about payroll, they think about benefits. Those are all critical, those are all critically important. But we focus on what we call the employee experience, which is your employer brand. So what does your employer brand look like? Are you attracting the right talent? How do you hire people? What's that hiring process look like? So what applicant tracking system are you going to use to collect talent? Are you going to use an offshore company to help you grow yourselves? How do you onboard? That's a big one remotely. How are you going to onboard your talent? What type of modules are you building so that they can ensure that they know how to do the job?
Yeah.
Then you go into engagement. How engaged are they going to be? Right? Like, how are you going to maintain a happy culture? How are you going to maintain productivity? How are you going to maintain the fact that they're connected with their work? And then there's two more. And then performance evaluations. So how are you going to measure performance? Really critical. And then how are you going to train and develop your employees? And then how you offboard. So that is the whole, what we call the employee life cycle. And that's your employee experience from the very day that you're hired to the last day that you leave the company. So what we do is we help organizations with what we call the remote employee experience, by enhancing those different areas. And we can do that on a project basis. So you need a new handbook? Okay, we'll figure out how long it's going to take, and we'll estimate the cost for you, and there it is. But then we also offer fractional HR leadership. So if you're a startup or a small business and you don't have an HR person, or maybe you're trying to promote your executive assistant to HR, we 100% advise against that. As a startup, especially if you're looking to get into getting funding or VC funding, once they decide to give you funding, they want you to go hire immediately. So you want to ensure that you have people that have experience.
Well,
building
that was the question. Is the trigger. So it's, you're about to get funding, you're sitting on a load of cash, you're struggling with, like, there's usually a trigger. And the point is, like, you can do some of that or all of that. But what about the company are you helping companies that have been traditionally remote? They went to full, obviously, because of kind of COVID, they went to remote, and now they're trying to sort out this hybrid, and it's not working. Like, they're trying to get people back. So what do you do in this environment?
I would say we would work with any organization that is either remote, currently fully remote, or currently hybrid, or they've already committed to transitioning. We're just not the company that's going to try to convince people. It doesn't work. We're seeing that with the forced return of offices right now. Yeah. So yes, we will work with those types of companies, and we'll work with them in an HR perspective, in the employee experience, how to improve all of those things. So the last thing is we charge a flat rate. So, well, yes, we do have workers. Yes, we do have workers. So we have 7 consultants. So we are not a, we are not a staffing agency, to be clear. We have 7 different consultants on our team. They've worked at former Google, former Tesla, former DoorDash, some other companies out there. You can check out our website. They are consultants on our team, and we deploy them to other companies on a part-time fractional basis. So that's what we do. It's not an outsourcing company. They're part of our team, and they're the same 7 people that we deploy
So
to different assignments.
so my wife's in HR, so she's the director of
Okay.
HR for a
Mhm.
company in Atlanta. She could potentially use someone like you. So if you're an HR of 1 or very little,
Yeah.
listen, I need to get, I would like in this year to help me. I need to focus, let's say, on a new implementation of some system. Let's say I need someone to come
Onboarding.
in
We're
and
going to
really
implement a new onboarding
yeah,
program.
like I need someone to kind of take over the handbook, the performance evaluation piece of something and say, I need a little scale. And then you say, hey, it's this much. She would go get approved for the budget to get basically
Yep.
instead of a full-time employee, like a 6 or 7 month contract to help me get this out, knock
Exactly.
this out. Okay. That's how you'd
100%.
leverage it. Is it
Yep.
you
So
guys are you're not there to stay, you're there to help and move on to the next customer.
yes and no. I think that's relatively accurate. I think so for an organization that has an HR team, we could come in and augment their current staff. So a huge project, a huge initiative comes in. Oh, someone goes on maternity leave. Oh, great. We can hire someone from Blend to serve in a part-time or interim capacity to fill in that void. Or if you have people that the project's just too big, maybe you got a team, but they're just already overloaded, we can come in and kind of take that work off their plate.
Are you
Another
also
option is
yeah, sorry.
one last thing. Another option is if you are a startup and you're like, we don't have HR, we just got a seed round, but we're going after VCs to get our Series A. And we know when we land a Series A, we're going to have to hire a bunch of people. But, maybe we should get this HR person in now to build our internal communication strategy, what tools we're going to use, write our handbook, write our hybrid remote policy now so that when they hire, they're great. Well, a fractional person, I've been a fractional people operations executive for a company out of New York called GMI. They make socks. I could basically I've been on with them for over 2 years. Fractional basically just means not full-time. So, I mean, some people might want to transition that role to a full-time role and grow the team. And yes, we applaud that. But some organizations are like, Kaleem, fractional is great. We have what we need. We're going to just keep you as the fractional director of people and move forward. So originally we designed it to transition out like what you said, but then we realized some people don't, if they like the service and they don't want to take on a full-time person, why not just keep offering it?
No, that's great, and we have a slight delay. So if I step on you in this audio, I apologize. It's just enough where it looks like you paused. I'm like, he didn't pause. And so
We'll take a
what I see here though too is right there is definitely a need for a fractional piece because and you see this is when a company goes from, let's say, solopreneur to small business, and they're just hiring, they're promoting people because they've been there and they've trusted the longest. That's usually where the seed of a lot of problems come from. And it's because you don't have someone that's kind of directing traffic, making sure the roles are done. And I see this even in my small organization where I've got people doing some stuff they probably shouldn't, but since we're people strapped, they're doing it. And I'm like,
Yes.
but if I move forward, I know I'd have to split that role off and
Yes.
I wouldn't know how to properly do that. And this is where you guys would come in and say, hey, that role, that person, I can do, they love to do this. They're capable of doing this, right seat, right person.
Yeah.
You need to hire for this specific thing. All right. I have a question.
100%. Salary analysis.
I see all the time and I hear about this, are companies trying to hire the unicorn.
Okay.
And I mean, this is such a problem. They don't want to pay enough and they want to have everything under the sun for this in person. And they're always disappointed. First, how can you help a company? What's going on so they can know that's actually going on in their company without them realizing it? And two, give them some advice what to do about it outside of hiring you. But like, that's a big problem is hiring to the unicorn. So I see this all the time. What do you do about that?
Let me just kind of clarify your question. Are you asking an employer wants to hire somebody, but they have this idea of the perfect person? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So let's say in the job description, there's
Yep.
not one person could ever have that much talent.
Yeah. I think we're seeing it a little less, honestly. I think the pandemic has done a lot of good things. I think the results of the pandemic, people have looked into different things that there's some positivity from it. And one of the things, and by no means are we anywhere near closing the gap on equal pay between men and women. Like we got a long ways to go still. So I got to clarify that. But we're starting to see some small, seeing the gap close a little bit. And I think people are a lot more in tune. And one of the stats that came out of the pay gap is that a lot of women will not apply for jobs that they don't see themselves qualified for, whereas men, we're just a bunch of assholes. We don't just lie. We'll apply for any job even if we're not even qualified for it. So I think that, along with alternative education, I think like Microsoft, Google, all these companies that are coming up with alternative paths for training, I think a lot of people have realized they have to reduce the requirements in the job descriptions and make them more easier for people to kind of get in at that level. So the advice that I would give to a client that's looking for that unicorn is okay, we put the job ad out. I mean, you have the data. That's what I love about like 2024. Like there's data. So it's like, okay, we posted the job. There's no applicants. What do you want me to do? Right. Like we're not going to find
or worse, there's 1,000 applicants because everybody qualifies in some level for that job. Because
well, I mean, you wouldn't want to make it wide open, right? But I mean, your question was the unicorn, and generally speaking, like I think most companies have realized they have to reduce some of the requirements. So that would be my piece of advice is like, look, you have to drop the requirements. And a lot of times, obviously for us, sometimes when you're dealing with hybrid companies and they're like, oh, well, we want this role is important. We need this role 5 days a week in the office. That's usually an easy one. Like, look, you're not going to find the unicorn because all the unicorns want flexibility.
Right.
You're not
going to find a zebra on that one. Like,
yeah. Look, if you want the top workers, and I think this is just a general statement, if you want top talent and you're requiring 5 days in office, you're actually not going to get the top talent, because the top talent's like, look, I can state my demands and you're gonna give me the demands I want. So I don't know, if you're not offering any type of flexibility and you want the best in whatever field, there's a good chance you don't have the best on your team.
Right. I agreed. Listen, this time of show, I always tell people like, okay, who is it should get a hold of you? How do you want them to do that?
Yeah. You can reach out on LinkedIn, of course. LinkedIn is our big space. Love talking about LinkedIn there. You can check out our website at blendmeinc.com. You can submit forms there. Let's see, all the social webs. I mean, I'm on the Instagrams. I'm on, I've been using Threads a little bit more, checking that out. And getting into YouTube, getting into TikTok. So I'm on all the stuff. Kaleem, Clarkson, everywhere.
You're the guy on Threads. Okay. We got off Threads. I'll take that one off topic with you. I'm trying to figure it out. It's like
Threads is so bad.
No one ever sees my, but I'm getting followers. I don't get it. Like there's
Threads is great. It will be great eventually. It's better. I think
so. There's too much money behind it. Just too much.
Yeah. For me, the other alternative is just not. It's just taking a different turn. So I think
you're referring to X and the trolling nature of X.
Yes. But yeah, I'll talk anything remote work, even if you just got a question.
Yeah,
let's talk. And hybrid, we believe if you're going to do hybrid right, we did add hybrid as an option because before we wouldn't work with hybrid companies, but we feel if you're going to do hybrid right, you need to be remote first.
Yeah, the mindset. Agreed. And I think I'll extend. I think some people should grab you for continuing education workshops. You should come have you talk, because I think your command of the topic and just your overall content, the space super well. And I think getting you in front of an audience is a smart thing to learn a little bit more about it. And I think people can get just even one, 30-minute speech with you would give them a bunch of nuggets of ways to think that they probably never thought of. So I think I'm extending your call to action to hire you to speak.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I've had great opportunities to do a lot of speaking engagements. Was the keynote speaker for Make-A-Wish Foundation. Awesome. Spoke at South by Southwest and, tons of other companies too. So yeah, you can reach out and we have a speaker package and we can give you all that information. So appreciate that plug, man. That was great.
Listen, I don't expect you to remember all your plugs. That's my job. Okay? You didn't tell me about it. I just was stalking you earlier today.
That's awesome. Awesome.
All right, Kaleem, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to hang out in the periwinkle room, but I really appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day to join us here on Never Been Promoted.
Anytime, man. Hey, we got to get together for a beer too. We're both in Atlanta. Why not?
Listen, I don't drink anymore, but I'm happy to drive you around whenever you want to go. I'm a
okay.
great
Hey, you know what?
Friend Uber.
There's so many great non-alcoholic bars now. Unbelievable.
They're so good.
I love mocktails. I didn't even realize I did. I had my first mocktail this year. Unbelievable.
100% agree.
And had way more fun than I thought. Like, you can have unbelievable fun. Like, because really most people don't realize it. I've realized this, Thomas. Drinking is just a thing to do to wet your mouth while you're having a good time. So
it's a habit. It's all it is.
It's a habit. Yeah. Anytime.
Just don't have the first one. It's easy. All right, I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you so much, Kaleem. Kaleem, thank you so much for coming on. Our mission is clear. Help entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. There's a ton of stuff you got to do as an entrepreneur. Hiring remote workforces, hiring people in person, just HR to market, all the stuff you have to do. Today, learn something from Kaleem. Get time with him if you're thinking, hey, I'm about to hire people. I really don't want to get an office. I'd rather keep that money or go invest in an extra employee, because that's really the difference and the advantage of scale is when you can hire remote. And, we didn't touch much on it, but remote doesn't just mean US. It could be anywhere in the world. And you need a strategy and a methodology to bring those people in correctly so they're going to perform and they know what they need to do and they can thrive in your culture. Once again, thank you for listening to the show and watching. Until we meet again, get out there. I want you to go unleash that entrepreneur, cut all the ties, start by one, all this stuff that's holding you back. Thanks for listening.